500 years from now, will anyone know you existed? Will anyone remember your name, your face, anything you did? The answer for almost everyone watching this is no absolute zero. You will be completely forgotten, erased, as if you never lived at all, and that terrifies people. The thought that everything you are, everything you've worked for, every relationship you've built, every moment you've experienced, will vanish without a trace. Jacobi Bronowski, one of the 19th century, said that's the wrong way to think about it. He said legacy isn't about being remembered. It's about what you contribute to the collective human journey, about the ripples you create that touch lives you'll never meet, about becoming part of something larger than yourself. And when you understand what he meant, when you really grasp the nature of human legacy, it changes everything. Not just how you think about death, but how you live right now. Because the question isn't whether you'll be remembered. The question is whether you mattered. And those are not the same thing. Let's start with the uncomfortable truth. 99.9% of all humans who have ever lived are completely forgotten. They left no records. No descendants who remember them. No mark on history. They were born. They lived. They died. And within a few generations, it was as if they never existed. Their names are lost. Their stories are gone. Even people who were important in their time, leaders, warriors, builders, most of them are forgotten too. Can you name the King of England from the year 1400? Can you name a single person who lived in your town 200 years ago? Probably not. And yet those people lived full lives. They had hopes, dreams, fears, loves. They thought they were important. They thought their concerns mattered. And now, nothing. Total oblivion. This is the fate that awaits almost everyone, including you, including me. We will be forgotten. But Bronowski asked a different question. He asked, does it matter if you're remembered? Does being remembered make your life more meaningful? And his answer was no. Being remembered is about ego, about wanting to be special, about fearing irrelevance. But meaning, real meaning, comes from contribution, from adding something to the world that wouldn't have existed without you. And that contribution doesn't need your name attached to it. It doesn't need anyone to know you did it. It just needs to exist. Bronowski spent his life studying human achievement, science, art, philosophy, culture. And he noticed something profound. Most of the people who advanced human civilization are unknown. The person who invented the wheel. Unknown. The person who first planted crops. Unknown. The person who discovered fire could be controlled. Unknown. But their contributions changed everything. They made civilization possible, and their anonymity doesn't diminish that. If anything, it makes it more pure. They created not for fame, but because it needed to be created. Think about the people who are remembered: kings, conquerors, emperors. Why are they remembered? Often because they killed a lot of people, because they conquered territories, because they accumulated power. Is that meaningful? Is being remembered for violence and domination a legacy worth having? Bronowski would say no. He would say that the most important people in history are often the ones we've never heard of. The scribes who preserved knowledge. The teachers who passed on wisdom. The parents who raised children with compassion. The workers who built the infrastructure of society. The artists who created beauty that inspired others. These people are forgotten, but their contributions compound. They become part of the collective human achievement. And that's what matters, not individual glory, but collective progress. Before we go further, I need you to really think about what this means for your life, because this isn't just philosophy. This is about how you choose to spend your time. So subscribe to this channel right now, hit that like button, and share this with someone who's struggling with their purpose. Because what comes next is going to reframe everything you thought you knew about meaning and legacy. Let's continue. Bronowski had a concept he called the ascent of man. He wrote a book and created a documentary series with this title. And the idea is simple but powerful. Humanity is on a journey, a climb. From ignorance to understanding, from brutality to compassion, from isolation to connection. And every person who has ever lived is part of this climb. Some people push the journey forward. Scientists who discover new truths. Artists who expand what's possible. Philosophers who ask deeper questions. But even people who don't make obvious breakthroughs contribute. Because they participate. They raise children who might make breakthroughs. They support the people who do. They maintain the stability that allows progress to happen. Every person is a link in the chain. And the chain extends backward to the first humans and forward to the last. You are part of this. Right now. Whether you realize it or not. Here's an example. You've heard of Isaac Newton, one of the most famous scientists in history. He discovered gravity, invented calculus, revolutionized physics. His name will be remembered for as long as humans study science. But Newton himself said, "If I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants." He was built Galileo, Kepler, Copernicus, Descartes. And those people built on others before them. Arab mathematicians, Greek philosophers, Babylonian astronomers. The chain goes back thousands of years. And most of the people in that chain are forgotten. But without them, Newton couldn't have done what he did. Their contributions were essential, and Newton knew it. He understood that he was part of something larger, that his individual achievement was really a collective achievement. And that's true for every breakthrough in history. Nothing is created in isolation. Everything builds on what came before. Now, apply this to your life. You might not be Newton. You might not discover a fundamental law of physics. But you contribute to the chain. Maybe you teach. And one of your students goes on to do something remarkable. Your contribution lives on through them. Maybe you create something small. A piece of art, a kind gesture, a moment of inspiration. And someone sees it or experiences it, and it changes their trajectory slightly. They make different choices because of you, and those choices ripple forward. You'll never know the full impact, but it's real. Bronowski believed that every act of creation, every moment of understanding, every expression of human potential adds to the collective ascent. And it doesn't matter if your name is attached. It doesn't matter if anyone remembers. What matters is that it happened. That you were part of the climb. Me tell you that someone you've heard of Rosalind Franklin. Actually, you might have heard of her recently because people are trying to correct the historical record, but for decades, she was forgotten. She was a chemist who took the X-ray images that revealed the structure of DNA without her work. Watson and Crick couldn't have built their model. But when they published their discovery, they barely mentioned her. She died young, from cancer likely caused by her X-ray work, and Watson and Crick got the Nobel Prize. They got the fame. They got remembered. She was erased. For 50 years, almost nobody knew her name. But here's the thing. Her contribution was real. DNA structure was discovered partly because of her. That knowledge changed biology, medicine, our understanding of life itself. And whether or not she was remembered didn't change the value of her contribution. The world is different because she existed. And eventually, the historical record is being corrected. People are learning her name. But even if they weren't, even if she stayed forgotten forever, her work mattered. That's Bronowski's point. Legacy isn't about credit, it's about impact. Here's another way to think about it. You exist because of millions of people you'll never know. Your ancestors, obviously, but also the people who built the society you live in. The people who invented language so you could communicate. The people who developed agriculture so you could eat. The people who created writing so knowledge could be preserved. The people who built roads, cities, governments, hospitals, schools. You stand on the shoulders of countless forgotten people. And everything you do because they made it possible. You are the inheritor of all human achievement up to this point. And you will pass something forward. Maybe not to your direct descendants. Maybe to strangers. Maybe to people who won't be born for generations. But you will pass something forward. That's how the chain works. You receive. You add. You pass on. Your name doesn't need to be remembered for this to matter. Bronowski also talked about the dangers of ego, of needing to be remembered. He said that the worst atrocities in history were committed by people obsessed with their legacy. Tyrants who wanted their names carved in stone. Conquerors who wanted monuments built to themselves. Leaders who sacrificed millions to ensure they'd be remembered as great. Hitler wanted 1,000-year Reich with his name at the center. Stalin wanted to be seen as the father of his people. Mao wanted to be immortalized in the collective consciousness. And what did they create? Suffering, death, destruction. They were remembered, but for horror. Bronowski said this is what happens when you confuse legacy with ego. When you care more about being remembered than about contributing, you become a monster. Because you're willing to do anything, hurt anyone, to secure your place in history. But the people who actually move humanity forward, they're often humble. They do the work because it needs doing, not for glory. Not for recognition, because it's right. We've reached the halfway point, and I want you to pause and think about your own life. What are you building? What are you contributing? Are you doing it for recognition or because it matters? Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Hit that like button and share this video with someone who needs to hear this message. Because what's coming next is going to show you exactly how to create a legacy that actually matters. Let's keep going. Now, let's talk about what you can actually do. How do you create a meaningful legacy if being remembered isn't the goal? Bronowski's answer was simple. Do good work. Work that adds value. Work that solves problems. Work that creates beauty. Work that increases understanding. It doesn't have to be grand. It doesn't have to change the world. It just has to be good. A teacher who inspires one student to think differently has created a legacy. A parent who raises a child with compassion has created a legacy. An artist who creates something beautiful that moves even one person has created a legacy. A scientist who answers one small question has created a legacy. A worker who does their job with integrity and care has created a legacy. You don't need to be famous. You don't need to be exceptional. You just need to contribute, to add more than you take, to leave things slightly better than you found them. Bronowski believed that the most important human quality is the ability to imagine, to see beyond what is and envision what could be. This is what separates us from other animals. We can conceive of possibilities. We can create things that never existed. We can improve. We can progress. And every time you use your imagination to create something new, to solve a problem, to make something better, you're exercising the most fundamentally human part of yourself. You're participating in the ascent. And this doesn't require genius. It requires effort, attention, care. A carpenter who imagines a better way to join two pieces of wood is participating. A cook who imagines a new combination of flavors is participating. A programmer who imagines a more efficient algorithm is participating. Imagination in service of creation. That's the core of human legacy. Here's something most people never consider. Your legacy isn't just what you create. It's also what you prevent, the suffering you reduce, the mistakes you help others avoid, the kindness you show that stops a cycle of cruelty. This is invisible. It's negative space, but it's real. If you prevent one person from giving up, from falling into despair, from making a terrible choice, you've changed the trajectory of their life, and that change ripples forward. They go on to affect others, who affect others. And the world is different because you existed, not because you built something, but because you stopped something bad from happening. This is legacy too. The teacher who sees a struggling student and takes time to help, the friend who listens when someone needs to talk, the stranger who intervenes when they see injustice. These acts don't get monuments. They don't get remembered. But they matter immensely. Bronowski also understood the importance of culture, of stories, of shared knowledge. He believed that one of humanity's greatest achievements is the transmission of wisdom across generations. We don't have to rediscover everything. We inherit knowledge. We learn from those who came before. And then we add to it and pass it forward. This is why education matters, why books matter, why art matters. They're vessels for carrying human understanding through time. When you create something that teaches, that preserves knowledge, that communicates truth or beauty, you're participating in this transmission. And it will outlive you. The book you write might be read by someone 100 years from now. The idea you share might be passed from person to person until it reaches someone who needed it desperately. You'll never know. But it happens, constantly. We're all connected through this web of inherited wisdom. And every contribution to that web matters. Let me give you a specific example from Bronowski's own life. He worked on the Manhattan Project during World War II. He was a mathematician helping to develop the atomic bomb. And after the bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, he was part of a team sent to assess the damage. He walked through the ruins. He saw the devastation, the human cost, and it changed him forever. He spent the rest of his life thinking about the responsibility of scientists, about the ethical implications of knowledge, about how power can be used for creation or destruction. And he became an advocate for using science for human benefit, not human destruction. He wrote books. He made documentaries. He taught. And his message reached millions. He used his platform to argue for wisdom, compassion, and ethical progress. That's his legacy, not the bomb. But the wisdom he gained from witnessing its effects and his dedication to preventing future atrocities. Now, you might not be in a position to influence millions, but you can influence the people around you, your family, your friends, your coworkers, your community. And those influences matter just as much. Because legacy is fractal. What you do affects those near you. What they do affects those near them. And the ripples spread. You might inspire someone who inspires someone else, who creates something remarkable. You're part of the chain that led to that creation. Your contribution was small but necessary. This is how human progress actually works. Not through isolated geniuses changing everything, but through millions of small contributions that accumulate into breakthroughs. And you're part of that accumulation every single day, in ways you don't even realize. Here's the hardest truth. You will never know your full impact. You will never see all the ripples. You will die without knowing how much you mattered. And that's okay. That's how it should be. Because if you could see it all, if you could measure your exact contribution, it would become about the measurement, about the score, about comparing yourself to others. And that's ego again. The whole point is to contribute without needing to know the outcome, to do good work because it's good work, to help because people need help, to create because creation is meaningful in itself, not for the reward, not for the recognition, but because it's what humans do. We add to the pile, we climb together, and the climb continues long after we're gone. Bronowski died in 1974, 50 years ago, and yet here we are, talking about his ideas. His legacy lives on, but not because he sought fame. He sought understanding. He sought to communicate important truths about human nature and human potential, and he did it well. So well that his work continues to inspire people. But even if we weren't talking about him, even if his name had been completely forgotten, his ideas would still be out there, because they were true, because they mattered, because they helped people understand themselves and the world. That's what real legacy is. Truth that persists, beauty that endures, kindness that multiplies. These things don't need a name attached. They exist on their own merit. So, let me answer the question from the title. Will anyone remember you in 500 years? Almost certainly not. Your name will be forgotten. Your face will be unknown. The specific details of your life will be lost. But will you have mattered? That depends entirely on what you do right now, on whether you choose to contribute or just consume, whether you create or just criticize, whether you help or just take, whether you add to the ascent or drag it down. You have this brief moment, this tiny window of existence, and what you do with it matters, not because someone will remember, but because it affects the trajectory of frightening small ways, in ways you'll never see, but real ways nonetheless. That's what Bronowski understood, and that's what he tried to teach. That meaning comes from contribution. That legacy is about impact, not recognition. That we're all part of something larger than ourselves, and that participating in that larger thing, adding to the collective human journey, is the most meaningful thing we can do. If this video changed how you think about your life and what matters, then you need to take action. Subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that like button and share this video with everyone you know. Because these ideas, this perspective on meaning and legacy, this is what people need to hear. This is what cuts through the noise and gets to what actually matters. I'll keep making content that challenges you to think deeper, to live better, to contribute more, and you need be here for all of it. So subscribe, share, and let's build something meaningful together. I'll see you in the next video.